Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Thank you for joining us today. My name is Amara Antilla. I am Senior Curator at the Contemporary Arts Center. And I'm so happy to be joined today by artist Tania Candiani and guest curator Kate Bonasinga. Welcome, everyone.
Hi, welcome, everyone.
So today we're going to be talking a little bit about Tania's upcoming exhibition, some of her past projects and how those have led her to where she is today. And I think we can jump right into it.
That's great. Yes. Well, thank you for the invitation. I'm happy to finally find a way to be in touch more than by email and feel closer. And yes, let's just will be great to speak about some projects that are that are connected with the conceptual ideas of the Sounding Labor exhibition.
Sounds great. So I'm going to pull up some images.
Yes.
And we'll go through those, and then we'll come back as a group and answer some questions and engage in a little more discussion.
I made a selection of works that are related with the exhibition. There are earlier works from different years where sound, labor, and the nostalgia of the machines are involved in all of them. This particular work is called Language of Sound, which was done in 2016 in Poland. And I was very interested in how the sound can work as how the language can work as sound by itself. I mean, without the meaning of language, without what it means, the words. And it what happened with me in Poland that I don't speak Polish, so I just hear this kind of very relaxing bzz, woo and zwa, woo, which was kind of a song for me. And then I realized that there are these 6 specific sounds of language, of Polish language, which none other people pronounce but Polish speakers. So in this video, each of the women were pronouncing individual sounds for a minute. And this project is presented as a single channel installation. And as well, I made a version with the 6 channels, separate channels. So entering the room, you have this 6 women pronouncing in different moments these sounds and created this kind of rhythm without any precision, which was very, very musical. So the next slide, it's again a project made in Poland. Again, I returned to this place, which is called Lasnia Center for Contemporary Arts, I visited this place several times because I was working in these projects, and I've always tried to create connections with the site. My work it's really related with research and historical research from the distance, and then once I arrive to the place, I just start feeling the real sensation of the site. And in this case, Lasnia is in a part of the town which is called Noviport, which means Newport. But it was not the Newport in that moment anymore. Actually, they just built an amazing super pro new port, and this new port became an old port, and the ships never stopped anymore. Didn't stop anymore in Noviport. So I planned this piece, which consists in a choir that makes the sound of sirens and ships with their voices. So this idea of using the voice, the sound of the voice as a machine, it just started with this project. And what happened is that we recorded the live action in the port, And suddenly, it was just like a magical act, like a ritual act. Their voices call a sheep that actually passes over and return the call of the siren with the real siren. So the third project, please, if you have questions, Kate and Amara, or you want to comment about what I'm speaking,
well,
would be
one
you're
question
welcome.
related to
Yes.
this work. Was this the first time that you worked with a chorus? Because your project with the CAC also involves a kind of choir.
Yes.
So.
Yes, this is the first time. The Language and Sound, actually they are a group of singers, the girls in the Language and Sound piece. They are 6 and sometimes 8, but they are not a choir. And in this case, yes, it was the first time. And choirs has a very precise organization, and they always work with the director. So it was very interesting for me to learn how to work with the director. And then director works with the choir, and that's how it works. Yes. Then this project, which is called Pulse in English, it has 2 moments. One is a performance piece that happens in the Mexico City subway, which is it's really huge, and it's built actually in the whole Mexico City territory that used to be a lagoon. So the subway lines works a kind of rivers. And I was interested in recreate the sound of the ancient city, a sound that should be water, no? So I remake these drums, which are pre-Columbian drums, which is called teponaztli, which are these like a boxes of wood, which were forbidden for women to play it because they resemble a female body part. So I decided to make an open call, which was an incredible amount of work with a lot of people, of course, to just make all as much to get as much women as the stations, which are 192 stations. So the day of the performance, after 2 rehearsals, we made this performance where each group of women started from one of the lines and ended up in the station, which is the deepest station in all the system, and emerge playing together. So it was important in those days because there was a lot of violence against women in the subway still, but that was when Mexico City subway decided to create this special train cars painted in pink for women. So this is an act of rebellion and an act of getting together and became a force and became a power. So then this project was edited. It took us about a year to edit it, and we presented as a 3-channel installation with 5.1 sound, which is a surround system sound. So I mentioned this because this 3-channel is the way we're gonna make our 4 industries piece for the CAC. Then I choose this piece. I choose to show this piece because it's connected with world fairs and industrial fairs and all the moment in the beginning of 19th century when this kind of technology was a wonder. I'm really interested in the way our imagination gets shaped with all these amazing technologies from the past. And this project was made in the Museo del Chopo, which is a museum in Mexico City, that actually the museum itself was shipped from Europe to Mexico. It was built by Eiffel. And back in Europe, it works as one of the venues for one world fair. And in those world fairs, the captive balloons were one of the most applause, I don't know, attractions during those days. So can we go to the next one?
Mm-hmm.
So for that piece, I started creating this sewing workshop to build a balloon inside the museum. And this is connected with something that I'm very interested in, which is displaying the labor work, showing the beauty of the act of making. So for this, the museum was transformed in a workshop for the month that it took us to these two very skilled seamstress. They have skills of making balloons. Actually, they were making the balloon, and then we fill up the balloon and put fire inside to heat the balloon and make it fly inside the museum. So I think that's the last. No, there's one more image that I want to show, which is ephemeral monument. So is the next one. An ephemeral monument was made in Havana, in Cuba, in 2019. And this connects with our exhibition, our upcoming exhibition, because Cuba was a city a country that puts a lot of interest, a political interest in sports. Sports were a kind of ideological flag. And in certain moment, they stopped caring for it. So they stopped giving support to the athletes, and they stopped giving support to the buildings itself. So everything is falling apart. So in this video piece, these athletes are doing these momentary sculptures with their own bodies, which are very precise and depend of really having I don't know, to trust the other one. So you have to create together in order to survive. And this speaks about as well about the modern era and all the utopian ideas about creating a country or representing an idea of a country.
Yeah, nation building, which I think
nation building, yes,
absolutely in your research into America's kind of industrial past as well.
Yes, and here we are.
So Tania, can you tell us a little bit about where you found this map, about the research behind the exhibition and how it began?
Yeah, well, actually, everything began with an invitation by you, Kate, inviting me to make a talk in the University of Cincinnati, and as well to thinking about a project to present to the CAC. And in that same moment, I received the good news of received the grant from the Smithsonian, which is the SARF, Smithsonian Artist Research Fellowship. So I decided to use part of that time to make a research about what I discovered from Cincinnati. That was like something that was very interesting for me, that the industrial exposition in Ohio, in Cincinnati, actually was started by the engineering school. So it started as a school for crafts and the professionalization is how you say it? Yes, of craftsmanship, which is totally related with my practice. So I started digging on. I found this map in the National Archives. Can we go to the next one, please? Next to this amazing book, they have 5 of those of the Cincinnati Industrial Exposition, and in that report, the Board of Commissioners were giving us the whole panorama of of all the parts that the industrial exhibition has, starting from the opening speeches from the governor and all the important men that were part of this, and then a very detailed description of each of the objects that were displayed, the objects and the technology. Please feel free to elaborate with me. Well, then this is some other group of photos that I found. I found a lot about the parades. There were civic parades and as well regular parades during the industrial exposition. And I found a lot of photos of these beautiful prints. There are lithographs that were actually printed in Cincinnati as well by a very recognized, famous company that was famous as well for making these circus posters, circus lithographies. It appeared, and I was really interested in the story of the building that you can see in all of the posters, which is the music hall. The music hall was built precisely for the purposes of the industrial exposition. And it's also very interesting, the representation of women, which is always like this kind of very idealized woman, and how the indigenous people is always serving the white people. So it's just very powerful and hard to watch the way the organization of the status was thought. Then the next one, please. Okay, so in the middle of all these things, I found this lithograph of the process of pork packing and meat packing in Porkopolis, which was Cincinnati. Do you want me to stop here to make an introduction of the next part?
Sure, absolutely. Maybe I'll just skip ahead to this slide. So one of the kind of centerpieces of the exhibition is this 3-channel film that Tania produced here in Cincinnati, focusing on 4 different types of industries in partnership with a all-women's choir, which responded to the various forms of work and labor that were involved with each and the associated sounds.
Yes. So in all my work, I try to bring this idea of obsolescence shouldn't exist. I believe that machinery needs to keep their own life, and but at the same time, I mean, in a way, I get aware as well of how the machines has been just disappearing the workers in the factory. So it's just like a line. Let's call it like a line of production, and it's the whole thing with capitalism. But what happened with this piece is that I found these images, like this one and the following one, which is the printing plant. All of those were industries in Cincinnati that in certain moment they were very important and huge. But then many of them, because of the obsolescence of technology and because everything was shifted to another way of mechanization or industry, they disappear. So they disappear when the machines disappear. The sounds of those machines disappear. So I had this idea of bringing back the sound and the presence of those industries through the sound of the machines, but with the sound of the voices. And I had that idea because I met Helen Hicken here in Mexico City, and she mentioned that Cincinnati has this choir, very famous choir festival. So that was my first approach to the connection of the choir and the city of Cincinnati, which is a big thing, actually, the Festival of May, right?
It's called May Festival,
May
which
Festival.
takes place in Music Hall.
Yes, as well. as well, which is
except for this year because of COVID-19, but it has taken place every
Yes.
year since Music Hall was built, which
Yes.
was completed in 1879.
Yes.
It's the largest choral festival in North America.
Well,
the largest and oldest. Those two
well,
things together.
that's why I decided to work with a choir, and we were super lucky to get in touch with Muse Choir. Muse is a very political oriented choir. All the repertoire they choose, it's curated in that direction. So I met with Jillian Harrison, which is the director, and we connected immediately. And she said, "Okay, I don't know exactly what you are trying to do. I mean, I don't know how it's going to sound, but the idea, it appeals to me, and I believe it's perfect for Muse, and count with us." So that's how we started with all this new piece. Let's speak about the location, and then we can speak about the construction of the piece, maybe.
Yeah, that would be great. Tania, you visited many sites throughout Cincinnati when you were in the planning processes for this film and the research phase. Can you talk a little bit about the kind of spaces you were considering and why you ended up choosing Felton House, which is a former brewery and OTR?
Yeah. Well, for a couple of reasons, it was important for me to have the atmosphere of a factory, not just because of the aesthetics and because it was important to have the choir in an ambience that comes from that period of time, but as well for acoustical reasons, because the factories create this kind of resonance, which is part of the history of the architecture itself. So recording in one of these pieces will bring a slice of the history by itself in the building itself. So we visited a lot of factories. One of them, I was very, very in love of it, but it was really in a ruin state, and it was difficult and dangerous to make a production of this size in a place which doesn't have the conditions. And we were super lucky to find this building. I think it was Kate or Amara who found it, which it was a brewery, and it has the sound, and it has the look of the architecture, and it was in perfect shape to receive us. So the process of making this piece started with the idea. I had this idea in mind of, besides creating the sound of the machines with the sound of the voice, I wanted to recreate the movement of the machinery with the movement of the camera. So I made these storyboards that looks very nice and cute. But what was amazing is that when we were recording finally, we really make it happen. I mean, the work of Lightburn and all the team, which was amazing to help me to just make it happen. As you can see in this image that I choose in the past, it was just the correspondence of the perspectives and everything. And we are having, as I mentioned it before, we're having 3 screens. So most of the time we are using symmetrical movements, and we are using a lot of geometry, which we can see in the old photos of factory places as well. The score was made in collaboration with Rogelio Sosa, which is a Mexican composer that I've worked with in other times. And for this project, he was amazing because he actually has a master's in harmonics of choirs. So I visited him in his studio with a lot of images from archives of the actual factories from the past. And he made me sing the factory. He said, "Tania, you just have to sing for me how you are imagining the sound of these industries, and most of them are like a walking through a factory. So you will hear like you are entering a place full of certain kind of machines, and then you're moving to another room where, I don't know, they are slicing meat. No, so we have the meat packing, we have the iron industry, the printing industry, and the woodworking. These are images of the making of. That was great. Olin Miranda appears over there. Olin is my editor, and in this case, he was a photographer as well. And I have been working with Olin for 7 years already. And it was freezing. We worked there for 2 days because we had to make it fast, because there were 40 women from the choir, and they couldn't just not going to work. So they offer us 2 full days, but not more. So that make us to really be very smart with time. For that, Stacy from Lightburn helped us a lot as an assistant director. She was, and a producer, she was very tough with that, which I'm very grateful with her, because this was probably the most big production I ever been in.
Yeah.
So I also learned a lot from it.
I feel like we had, 20 to 30 people on site at any given time, just on the production side, stagehands, sound people, lighting experts, several videographers. Yeah.
Yes, it was quite amazing. And this is what Rogelio ended up putting together in musical terms for have a conversation in musical terms with the director and with the choir. So this is some of the examples. And here, what I did, I made a series of drawings remaking the scores of Rogelio with all my notes, because I need to make this kind of notes which are related with the sound, like fish, which is exactly the way I sing to him to create the score. Next. Okay. Scissors. Yes.
Here I am. So a much more intimate production was filmed at Music Hall. Music Hall was kind enough to donate Springer Auditorium, which is the main auditorium where the symphony plays and where most of its main events take place. And it was also the site where the industrial expos took place from 1879 until they concluded in the late 1880s. So Tania was very interested in commissioning an actress to recite a composite or collage of some of the opening addresses for the exposition that she found published in books that she found at the Smithsonian, in some of the archives at the Smithsonian. So we invited Jillian Harrison Jones, who is the director of Cincinnati's Muse Choir, to act in the role of reciting a collage of these opening addresses on stage at Music Hall. So Lightborn once again offered their services to film Ms. Jones doing this recitation. And it was a very sort of loaded monologue, because she is a relatively young African-American woman who was put in a position of saying the words that were spoken by men, Caucasian men in the late 19th century, all of them of high socioeconomic status. And she had the opportunity that no one of her race or gender would have had at the time that those words were spoken. So even though the industrial expositions really promoted themselves as being open to all, there was definitely a social hierarchy in place. And most of the visitors, we believe, were probably of a higher socioeconomic status.
Yeah.
So it was a really rich opportunity to borrow Music Hall for the purpose of filming this video, which is titled Speech to an Empty Theater. So that's a long preamble, Tanya, of you want to give us any more insights about that piece?
Well, I may add, it's anecdotic because in the book you are referring the report of the board of commissioners. A woman appear over there, but she appears at the very last moment, and she's presented as the wife of the governor of somewhere, and she was invited to the stage just for turning on a clock like anniversary clock or watch or something. So she was just invited for that reason, and she didn't pronounce a word. So it's just something that will guide us to our next piece, which is this is the making of the Speech for an Empty Theater, and then this is the next piece. Amara, do you want to make an introduction, or just keep talking?
Sure, just briefly. I know we're almost out of time, but
yes.
These are two images that really inspired Tanya's next piece that we'll be talking about, called Working Women. The image on the left features a female and male workers attending to an offset press at the U.S. playing card company. And this image was actually the inspiration for a larger mural, which you see on the right, which was produced by Weinhold Rice and originally installed in Cincinnati's train terminal. But you see that the actual mosaic mural does not include the woman worker anymore. So Tania, do you want to talk a little bit about where you found this image on the left and how that ended up becoming the work?
Yeah, first actually I was familiar with Weinhold Rice murals when I was doing the beginning of the research on the industrial past of Cincinnati. And so we tried to visit the train station actually with Kate in my first visit to Cincinnati, and it was under repair, so I couldn't see in live. But then in my second visit in the library of the Cincinnati Museum of Art, I found this book with an article which is called "Women Were There." And I found many photos that were actually taken by the same photographer that were the inspiration for Weinhold Rice, where there were women, and Rice on purpose disappeared the woman from this idealistic representation of the worker. So that really pissed me off. I mean, it's just like we have to tell this story, and then simultaneously I heard this about the story of the Rockwood Company, which was actually initiated by a woman that was interested in training women as well. So the whole thing get together in this piece, which is create this mosaic made in ceramics in the Rockwood factory facilities, bringing back that woman that was present in the industry. And this is our sketch and the colors that we are going to use. And as soon the COVID-19 let us work, the production will start.
Yeah, so this work, as Tania said, has been put on hold during this time of quarantine, but we look forward to adding it to the exhibition a bit later once it's finished. So actually, I'm going to transition back into the discussion mode so we can close this PowerPoint slightly.
Great.
Tania,
Yes.
thanks so much for that.
Great. Well, thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Yes. Well, I would like to say a couple of things that about how things has been very complicated with our production, not just with our production, but for everyone everywhere in the world with the COVID. But in talking about our exhibition, we're supposed to have an opening on April 24th. That obviously was postponed. And everything was postponed probably in March, which means that our editing time and our time in the studio has not been possible. So it has been quite a challenge to just keep working on and doing our best to finish the whole exhibition, the whole pieces, as an act of resistance. And I can't wait. I really hope that traveling at least at the beginning of the next year or at the end of this year would be possible, because I don't want to miss the piece installed inside. I mean, I'm looking at and just having the chance to look at the four industries videos, the video installation in the side with the quadraphonic sound and with that size of the projections.
Yeah.
It's really exciting to see it.
It's been really, I think, generative to be able to look forward to this project during this time of working from home and having the museum closed down. And I think everyone's really excited about being able to share it with audiences in some way. So the CAC is currently closed, and we're planning to reopen at some point in early July or later, when the governor decides it's safe for museums to reopen. And we'll of course be, opening under different types of a different reality where we're limiting the number of visitors in the space and really ensuring that everyone can maintain social distancing and stay safe.
It's quite a thing, because I mean, the choirs and the concerts are actually an opportunity to get all together. So this is a way of being really join us, and it has to be in some other way. I mean, we had this in mind to make this live concert for the opening in the museum, Cincinnati Museum of Art, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And we will have to wait for that, but I'm just happy that we are still working and we have to just make this happen.
Yeah.
Another thing to point out is that Tania's first visit to Cincinnati was in August of 2017. So this has been an almost 3-year project of research and production. And the exhibition combines some of the ephemera from the 19th century that promoted the expo, some of the lithographs you showed earlier in this conversation. So we have included not only newly produced artwork, all of it is newly produced by Tania, except for the ephemera from the 19th century. So Cincinnati's audiences will be the first to see the artwork, which is really and all of it is about Cincinnati and in this place, in this time, as well as in sort of responding to previous times.
Actually, that's a great segue. Just looking at some questions that came in from audience members. One person asked, Tania, when you were doing research and combing through Cincinnati's archive, what surprised you the most? What interested you the most?
Oh my God. I believe that it's just a difficult question, Amara. That's not very nice. It's difficult to choose because, I mean, for example, I get really in love of this amazing, beautiful book, which is like a Japanese long book that you open it and it has all the floats of the centennial exhibition and the commemoration of the centennial of the city, and all the representation of, and the float is just a Roman and Greek inspired, which is just like, it's very beautiful piece, but as well is very, I just need to I have to be very critic with that idea of representing the countries and connections with Roman Empire, so countries as an empires, and that was very surprising. Of course, I was surprised about the city itself. That was that has been super. I'm super grateful with the city and every the buildings and the story of the whole thing. I mean, I can't choose. The power of the woman that sings in the choir. That was amazing. The moment that when that's the one. The moment when I first heard them singing the score in real, because I went to a rehearsal, but choirs never rehearsal with the full voice. They just note it. They just make the notes and the but then the first very moment when the camera's already there, when they start to sing the score, that impressed me more. Yes.
Okay, so
Okay.
I think the final question was, will the videos be available online? Or the next question from the audience, right, from the Instagram audience, will the videos be available? The filming that we created for industry, the films that we sort of is a composite, really. Will those individuals' videos be available online or not?
Yeah, well, it's going to be difficult to have a real feeling of the 4 industries video installation online, because it is a 3-channel video with a quadraphonic sound that creates this kind of atmosphere of the different channels and the room itself, like I mentioned it, the presence of the architecture in a way of sound. But I think we're gonna try to make like a short preview, especially for headphones, so people can hear it in their own houses, just to have an idea of how it is, because we have to. And I really want to share the work with the audience. And in the case of the Speech for an Empty Theater, definitely is going to be available online, so people will be able to hear it and take the time to just think about the script, which is it's very powerful lines from the past. Yes.
And I think this might be a nice way to conclude how important the actual museum experience is. For industries is the type of artwork that really can't be experienced virtually. It has to be experienced actually to have its full impact and power. So once the CAC reopens, this is a plea to make sure you get there. Don't think you can experience
yes
on your computer screen in your living room. It just won't be the same.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, we're creating enormous kind of immersive screens, which will fill the entire second floor gallery. So I hope you can check it out.
Yes.
Good. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you. Thank you to everyone. Thank you, Amara. Thank you, Kate.
Great to see you, Tania. Stay well, okay?
Yeah, stay well, everyone, please.
Yeah, to everyone.
Bye-bye.
We actually have just a quick announcement. So June 28th will be our next Sunday Connections event, and we're transitioning to a monthly event. So please tune in for that. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.